Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I welcome this discussion, and I think that the last comments that were made about trade being a two-way street where you have to have win-wins is right on point. NAFTA, I hope, will be modernized and renegotiated, but I was very frustrated to see the narrative change over the last 18 months or so during the campaign year, because I think it didn't accurately reflect the successes of NAFTA, notwithstanding the fact that we need to modernize it. California leads the country in agricultural revenue, and our producers are twice as reliant on foreign trade as the rest of the United States. Let me give you some numbers. On NAFTA partners, Mexico and Canada account for 22% of California's agricultural export. In 2015, for that year, Mexico accounted for $3.5 billion in agricultural trade, Canada $1.1 billion. And I just think it's inaccurate to say that when you look over the last 20 years and any objective criteria that you measure it by, that it's been a disaster. It hasn't. Or the single worst trade deal that's ever been negotiated. It hasn't. Yes, it needs to be upgraded and modernized, but we did that in TPP, as was pointed out. And I think it was a mistake to walk away from it on the first day without having read it or examined for what I think is primarily political purposes. Notwithstanding the rhetoric, I think that any objective analysis shows that when you look at job loss, and I'm very sensitive to the job losses and to the situation with our friends in organized labor on manufacturing, when you contrast it to where we are in terms of the totality and where we want to go, the fact is that we need to renegotiate this successfully. I have serious concerns, as do you, whether or not we can do this in the light of a bilateral. Let me ask the panel members, is there any chance that a renegotiated agreement could lead to improved conditions for migrant agricultural workers, which we are in short supply in the United States? Or is it more likely that the labor force will relocate to Mexico if the agreement boosts economic productivity there? Who wants to take a whack at that?
I don't know.
Congressman, I'll just simply say in the dairy industry there is a level of concern and anxiety based on the failure for us to actually solve our immigration issue in the U.S. We've got a broken system, and it is impacting and affecting dairy production.
It's affecting all of agriculture.
Well, I can't speak for all
I understand
today, but I can with confidence.
Let me go beyond. I mean, we remember clearly in 2010 with the Mexican truck driver issue, and then last year with the country of origin labeling. Each side has leverage. I remember very clearly when tariffs went on wine table grapes in 2010 and cheese production in Mexico, and it took us 18 months to get those tariffs removed. And last year, both Canada and Mexico were putting the lists together on retaliatory activity if, in fact, we didn't take action on the country of origin labeling. Is it not true that there's leverage on both sides? I see head nodding. Yes.
Well, I'll tell you one of our concerns in the poultry industry. A number of years ago, one of the companies in Mexico brought a dumping case in Mexico against our industry. I actually have gone down and testified in that proceeding. We were able, through the cooperation of the larger Mexican poultry industry and the Mexican government, to get that duty suspended. Essentially, they've never applied it, but it's sitting there. It's sitting there on the books in Mexico, and it could be applied at any time. And our concern is that something's going to happen in these negotiations in another sector.
Well, it has to be a win-win. I mean, if it's we win and you lose,
right?
No country's going to agree to that.
And we've had experience, Mr. Congressman.
I mean, that makes good politics, but that doesn't make a trade deal, maybe.
Well, I'm just telling you, our concern right now is that...
I share your concern. Let me just quickly go, because my time is running out. Who was the big winner, in your opinion, when we walked away from TPP? And these countries are still trying to go ahead.
China.
China? Mm-hmm. You agree? China?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a consensus there. I think China was the big winner on this.
Well, the EU also won in the dairy because they just recently negotiated an agreement with Japan, which gives them more market access and some protections in terms of GIs.
Well, my time's expired. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully, we'll
Mr. Scott.
figure out a consistent agricultural trade policy.